Welcome to another episode of Just Me podcast. And today we are joined by the amazing Martin Cosser, who will tell you who he is and what he does. So, Martin, over to you, please.
Yeah, hi Sid. Yeah, my name's Martin Cosser. I'm the founder and CEO of a charity called Charlie's Promise. We're an anti-knife crime charity, and it's a charity that was set up in memory of my 17-year-old son, Charlie Cosser, who lost his life to knife crime. He was murdered and died on the 25th of July, 2023.
Wow, wow, wow. And okay, so what would you like people to know about one, Charlie's Promise, but also
Mm.
about Charlie and also about your aims in the work that you're doing?
Yeah. Well, let me start off talking to you about Charlie
Okay.
because that's the most important thing. And I think when I go out into schools and I do my talks, the first thing I do is bring Charlie to life because it's important for me as Charlie's dad,
Mm.
Tara, my wife, as Charlie's mum, but all of our family. Because I think, and I'll be honest, I ignorantly used to think that knife crime was inner cities, working class, and gangs and only those areas. And the reality is, if it can happen to my little boy, it can happen to anyone. Charlie he wouldn't have had an argument with anyone. He was kind.
Wow.
He was talented at Brentford Academy as a young child, as a footballer. I named him Cheeks. That was my name for him up
Did
until the
you?
last moment I spoke to him. He had a very cheeky smile. He was, I think, Sid, the heartbeat of our family in so many ways. I love my children equally, but Charlie was so funny. And I think he was so funny because he didn't know he was funny.
Oh, how lovely.
And, you know, he could do all the accents in the world. He'd come in. He could be irritating as well. Because he was so laid back. In fact, so much so, one of his teachers once said, "I sometimes wonder if he has a pulse, but he's the funniest lad I know." He'd come in and I wear my heart on my sleeve. So does my eldest son, Adam. And Charlie would push our buttons until we reacted. And then he'd just laugh. You couldn't wind Charlie up. He didn't like shouting. You'd never hear Charlie raise his voice. If you ever raised your voice to Charlie, you'd lose him.
Wow.
Um, he was quite private as a child. I think my other two, Adam and Eloise, my daughter, who was only 15 when she watched her brother die, Eloise, she's now 17, and my eldest son, Adam, they're open books. They're like me, but Charlie had that, he just had that side to him where he was a bit of a reflector. He enjoyed time on his own as well. He loved his own space. And he was just relaxed, enjoying life. He'd just started an apprenticeship actually at Charterhouse School. He'd passed his GCSEs, he'd
Mm.
gone to college, and he was doing a sports management course. And he said to Tara and he said, "I want to leave." And we're like, "You're not leaving." And he said, "I'm really unhappy." And we said, "Well, you need to find something, Charlie." And he did. He found this apprenticeship in horticultural landscaping at Charterhouse, and he was only there 7 weeks. And
Wow.
the words, I mean, people just say it about Charlie, and we found this out since he died. Some of the things he did, just so kind, but people just click with him. There's one story I want to share with you, if it's
Mm.
okay. When he
Mm.
was really young, and this just typifies who Cheeks was. It was the last day of school term at his first school, and the head teacher from the middle school had come down to say to the kids that were making the move after the summer holidays, "We're really looking forward to seeing you, to quash any anxiety and sort of, have a nice summer holidays." And
Mm.
one of his ways to relax them was he bought all his children a bag of sweets, and he lined them up one by one, Sid, and he handed out these sweets, and he got to the last girl in the line, and he'd run out, and he said, "I'm so sorry." He said, "I've run out, but I'll sort something out for you." And what happened then actually reduced the head teacher to tears, because from nowhere Charlie made a beeline for this girl and handed her his sweets. And that was Charlie. I mean, he'd share his sweets and his ice creams with Eloise. People couldn't understand it because kids like to hoard, don't they? But
There
Charlie
we
would
go.
always share with Eloise and make sure she was okay. And then another story. When he was a bit older, there was not long after Charlie died, we heard from someone he used to go to school with, who left the school in year 9. She was having problems at home. Mental health related issues, actually feeling suicidal. And she said Charlie was the only one that really stayed in touch with her, and he'd message her several times a week just to make her laugh and call her every now and again just to check in. And don't get me wrong, Charlie was a teenager. He'd play his music loud. He
Yeah.
could be really, really irritating and lazy, but he had the kindest heart, and it was a privilege to be his dad. And when this happened, um, I won't run through the full details, but it was horrific. I mean, it was a knock on the door and a rushing off to the Royal Sussex in Brighton. We got diverted. Charlie had a cardiac arrest. We arrived at the hospital. He had another one, and we were basically told he wouldn't survive surgery. And he did, and he fought for his life for 2.5 days. He lost every milligram blood in his body, had a ruptured bowel, ruptured spleen, two traumatic cardiac arrests, and died of irreversible brain damage. But before we switched off his life support machine, I knew I had to do something, and I promised him that I'd spend the rest of my life
Oh,
educating young groups of children about the dangers and the immeasurable impacts of knife crime, which is why my charity is called Charlie's Promise. I've spoken now to over 40,000 young people since September of last year, um, in mainstream schools, secondary schools, independent schools. I go to primary schools, where I believe, and I've had 2 meetings with Minister Dame Diana Johnson about this. I'm campaigning for compulsory knife crime to be on the
good for you.
curriculum as
Good
part of
for
the
you.
PSHE
Good for
content
you. Yeah.
at primary school age.
Yeah.
Because I tell you what, out of the 40,000 I've spoken to, 5,000 of them have been 8-year-olds. And
Wow.
at that age, they're inquisitive. They want to learn. They they are easily influenced. It's the time I wholeheartedly believe we need to be getting to these young people. And I think the biggest tool we've got in the fight against knife crime is education.
It is. Yeah.
Um,
But they get
and
it, Martin, at that age. I mean, I've got a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 5-year-old. They get it. Even at 7, they
yeah, they
understand.
do.
They know.
They do, and it's too easy to wrap them up in cotton wool, mollycoddle these kids, and like I mean, come on, the evolution of technology, the digital world we live in, they're exposed to all sorts of things. Let's be transparent. Let's be honest. My talks when I go out are not to scare young people. They are not to scare. They are impactful. I
Mm,
get hundreds, and I mean hundreds of messages a week from teachers, parents, but most importantly, young people who are moved by our story, who
wow.
now know how they can report knife carriers anonymously through an incredible organization called Fearless, who are actually part of Crime Stoppers. They can report, knife carriers without the fear of repercussion. They don't even trace the IP address and know that they're doing something that may save a life. The night Charlie was stabbed, the shank was mentioned twice and a knife once by my son's murderer, and none of the young people there did anything about it. We don't blame them, but the mum was only 100 meters away. If someone had taken knife crime seriously that night, my little boy would still be alive. That's a fact. And if they'd had it on in schools and they'd been spoken to about it, they may have taken it seriously.
Yeah.
My son's murderer, Ura Veribus, was known to carry a knife. And again, no one had ever done anything about it. They could have gone to Fearless. They could have reported him. It could have been looked into. And again, Charlie would still be alive. None of these people are to blame. There's only one person responsible for my little boy's murder, but there were missed opportunities. And we need to learn from that, Sid.
Yeah, absolutely. So why do you think children are carrying knives? Because it is. I mean, we're not talking adults, are we? We're not talking. We're talking kids, and kids even in primary.
As young as 7, I've spoken to a
Yeah.
7-year-old knife carrier.
But why? What has happened
Okay.
in society? Do you think?
So the honest answer is I can't. I mean, look, I'm a member of the government's task force and knife crime coalition now. So I talk to a lot of people who are, I hate to say experts in this field, but they are. They've worked in
Sure.
anti-knife crime charities for some time. They're leading experts in alternative provision, education, in care, and all sorts of different things. And the answer to your question is there are lots of reasons. I believe. I think if you look at, again, the evolution of technology, look at TikTok, for example, as a platform.
Mm,
You look at music artists, drill music, they glorify knife crime. Some of the games that kids play are violent games. We have county lines gangs that are, for anyone that doesn't know, are they courier basically drugs. They get young people. They entice them with gifts and money to run drug errands for them. And a high percentage of these young kids that are groomed into these gangs will carry knives. But the sad thing is, and this is again comes through the power of education, and I share in my talks, you are 65% more likely to be stabbed by carrying a knife. It's a suicide mission. Most people that lose their life to knife crime are, in fact, knife carriers, and more often than not with their own weapons. So,
Wow.
you know, it's not a safe thing to do. But the answer is there's lots of things. But listen, you know, if we're not talking to children, if it's not even, if a school still has a choice in a country where knife crime has grown 84% in the last 10 years and is growing 3 to 4% year on year, then we're not taking it seriously. Do you know,
Wow.
when not long after Charlie had died, there was a reporter, okay, who I happen to know. I won't share her name, but she's a BBC journalist, and she was reporting from Notting Hill Carnival, and she was on air. She was live on air, and she said, "I come to you from Notting Hill. There's been a stabbing today. A gun was found yesterday. Other than that, the day has gone well," and then went on to talk about, right, the family day, advertised the family day that was coming up on the Sunday. Now, what that horrified me, but
Yeah.
what that did was just demonstrated to me that knife crime is, dare I say it, becoming a way of life.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
becoming the norm. We must never, ever, ever allow it to to get to that stage. No family, and I mean no family, should have to live as my family live.
Wow. Martin, when times get challenging for you, how do you where do you find your strength? Because we talked before we came on air, didn't we, about how it feels in the everyday.
Yeah,
Can you just sort of elaborate
yeah, I
on?
can. Yeah, I can, and I'll be honest. Okay, so look, I have two other children who I love dearly. This is real transparency coming up for you, but I Tara and I, it's like an out of body experience. It's like being reincarnated into a world where the buildings, the people, the everything is the same, but yet everything is different. I think you function. There's a time when people say describe your life to me, Martin. I describe it like this, and I say, and this is how I really feel actually. Like it's like walking on a tightrope, okay? And one side is this superpower driven by love of Charlie and
Oh,
wanting to make him proud and save lives in his name and giving him the legacy that he so rightfully deserves. And the other side is the abyss, this darkest place that's full of pain,
God.
anguish, sadness, addiction, whatever, you know, or just a hell, a living hell.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to stay on the superpower side all the time. And actually for me personally, when I find it really difficult is this sort of period now when the schools aren't they're on holiday, because although I have meetings, I have, well, today I'm doing a podcast. You know, when I'm busy, I'm okay, my mind doesn't wander, but I really struggle with downtime. Like really struggle. It's incredibly hard. My mind wanders, and it's tough. I mean, I only have to look. No one sees behind closed doors, Sid. Okay, my wife Tara, she still sleeps with the light on the landing because we used to leave it on for Charlie. We
Oh,
still have the back door open for him because we never gave him a key, cheeks, because he'd only lose it. He was a bit clumsy, so she leaves the back door open. She still messages him every day to tell him
oh,
she loves him. Yet his phone's in a box with the last clothes he ever wore that
oh,
sit next to a half-eaten pack of sweet chili nuts that sit next to his ashes. Why are his ashes in his room? Because we walked round graveyard after graveyard, crematorium after crematorium, and couldn't find anyone his age. I
oh,
hate being at home. I've been away 3 times on my own. I go to bed at 7:30 at night because I can't sit in my lounge. I've had friends for over 30 years that don't talk to me and haven't been in touch because they don't know what to say. My
wow.
daughter, Eloise, at 15, what she went through at her school, teachers ignoring her. When I challenged it, I got from the head teacher, well, it's hard for them, Martin. They don't know what to say. I'll tell you what's hard. My 15-year-old daughter watching her brother die and then visiting him in the chapel of rest after a Home Office post-mortem. That's hard. Her best friend got a boyfriend 6 weeks after Charlie died and dropped her. She got offered a scholarship at Charterhouse School because she's very bright. She lasted 3 weeks. She went to Godalming College. She lasted a morning.
Wow.
My eldest son, Adam, has just become a parent. We found out that we were going to become grandparents for the first time, and that he was going to become a dad for the first time the day we were told Charlie was going to die. They couldn't keep the news in. They were keeping it for my birthday the following month in the August. So he didn't get to tell his little brother that he was going to become a dad. And
Oh,
the reality is, and this is really hard to say, and I love that little boy dearly, but you look at my grandson, Albie, okay? He's been affected by knife crime before he's even been born. And the day he was born was one of the hardest days of my life, and it should have been one of the greatest.
wow,
That just gives you the
wow,
smallest little window, Sid, into our world. Coping mechanisms that I have are few and far between. One of them is going out and talking to kids, keeping Charlie alive. And I do when I do that. I feel he's with me, and I keep him close. The other coping mechanism I have is actually talking into a screen. And when I find it quite therapeutic, when Charlie was in hospital, I recorded videos hoping he was going to survive, and just to
wow.
let him know we were all here for him and sort of update him on the story. One of
Mm,
the doctors said it might help him. And very long story short, I decided to join TikTok to educate people, because I thought I can go into schools, and my goodness me, I've spoken to a lot of young people and adults, and I've been to prisons, but how can I educate people on a bigger scale? So I joined TikTok, and it's nothing to do with a charity, Charlie's Promise. It's just a father's account of having his child murdered. Those moments in time that have been stolen from me, but also stolen from Charlie. And I've now got like 55,000 followers, and some
wow,
of my videos have been viewed millions of times. And I often get people from around the world sending love, and I've played your videos to my children, and they're all in tears. And do you know what I say? Tears will dry up, yeah,
mm,
but there's nothing nice about knife crime. I'm glad you're upset. I'm glad they're upset, because this is the reality. This is what it's like, you know. So yeah, that's those are really my only two coping mechanisms are, as I say, and Charlie has a bench that we found out afterwards, a favorite place he used to go, which has beautiful views, and I can quite often be found there at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So
wow. I love your kind of metaphor, your analogy about that superpower and that hell and
yeah,
that tightrope in the middle. And as you
yeah,
say, because when we're full of busy and purpose, it's easier, isn't it? Because you keep going. But as you
yeah.
say, when there's school holidays, when there's not so much to do, then that time to dwell, to reflect is a hard space to live in, isn't it?
It's a really hard space to live in, and I think you don't get a lot of support in this country either. I'm going to be honest. There's lots of people with lots of titles. We've had 2 family liaison officers, victim support, homicide support, specialist nurse, therapists, GPs. But you know what? They've all got very different ways of working, and as a
Yeah.
family, you are left feeling really bamboozled, and it's really hard. You have to just literally take it a minute at a time. And even now, we've just passed the 2 year anniversary, and I can't believe that, because time for a family like ours stands still. But even now, our lives are very much, how are we going to get through the next minute, the next 5 minutes, the next 10 minutes? We can't think too far ahead, and that's really sad, but it's really true. And we don't want to feel like that. Please don't misunderstand me. We don't. I would never want to wallow in self pity and feel sorry for
Of course,
myself, but
of course.
I know Charlie would want us to do everything we could, and I'm qualified to say it. It bugs me when other people say Charlie would want. I'm like, you don't even know him,
Yeah.
and I know they don't mean anything bad from it, but when they say that, it's hard to hear. But he wouldn't want us to feel like that. But I cannot articulate how hard life is, how sad
Mm.
life is. We miss that little boy so much, and it's it's destroyed the people I love most in this world.
But the thing is also, Mark, it's like when people say move on, there is no
Oh
moving on, is there?
no,
I mean, for
no.
you, Cheeks he's always not there. It's
Well,
like when you lose something, I don't know if it's a possession, it's like, oh, well, it's gone. Whilst as a parent, as a father, it
you
doesn't go. The
it doesn't
vacuum is
go.
always there. The void is there.
The void is, oh god, it's there. I still open Charlie's bedroom door every
Oh,
day.
yeah, bless you.
I'm not the type of person who would have necessarily ever got a tattoo,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I wanted to feel something different. So my arm, I have an arm. My arm is all tattooed. I've got a portrait of Charlie. It's been incredibly well done. But you know what? Every morning I wake up, if I've slept, I look to my arm and I see it, and it doesn't give me that comfort. It gives me that
Yeah,
bang reality again. Charlie's not here, and
yeah,
I
yeah.
think I still think as a family we are still in trauma. I
Yeah,
think
yeah, I bet you are.
this is something that you're right in what you say. You know, time is not a healer for this.
No,
I think I'm convinced Adam and Eloise will find their happy moments in life. They'll always miss their big and little brother. Everyone loved Charlie. Everyone loved Cheeks, and they'll miss him forever. And they'll be affected by what they've witnessed going through a murder trial, which I have to say is horrendous. Um, but Tara and I to lose. I think if Charlie had died in an accident or an illness, Sid, I think look,
yeah,
we'd still be broken, but we'd understand it.
yeah,
Everything, it can happen, everything that Charlie wasn't were his last moments in life, violent. A girl had run up to him in floods of tears, asking for help because she was being touched up and harassed at this party, and could he help? And all he asked him to do, and we saw this, we had to see this on video, was asked him to leave. And he's Charlie's murderer was 6 foot and 15 stone. Charlie's 5'7" and 10.5 stone, and he's laid into him, pulled a knife out, and stabbed him multiple times.
wow,
You know, he pled guilty. He pled guilty to Charlie's murder and then changed his mind. He was allowed to vacate his guilty plea, putting us through 6 months of hell waiting for a murder trial, and a murder trial that lasted a month, and then didn't even take the stand. His mum, Julia, was allowed to sit in line with him, blowing him kisses and heart emojis. I'll call you later. His dad would snarl at all of our family. He'd film us outside a court. And do you know what? Not once did we react. We carried ourselves with integrity. And Berebus was sentenced to 16 years, but they call that a life sentence, Sid. It's ridiculous. The life sentence is ours.
sure, sure. And what advice, Martin, would you give other parents or kids who are caught up or potentially going to get caught up in this world?
Well, parents, what I would say to parents, what I've noticed is there is a huge gap now
Mm, of
between I'm speaking generally, yeah. There's a
course.
huge gap now between parents and children. I've touched a couple of times on this podcast about the
Mm,
technology and how it's moved on, and it really has. And I think children these days speak a different language, but they've lost their identity. They don't know what they represent anymore, and those gaps between parents and children are getting wider and wider and wider. I would encourage you as a parent to have conversations. I've never spoken to my children about knives, as an example, right? Ever, because I knew they'd never carry. What I didn't legislate for were other people and their behaviours and actions. I can't ask Charlie whether he heard there was a knife at the party that night because he is dead. Yeah, that's the reality.
mm,
Use my son story as a top conversation starter. I do parent talks, and this is exactly what I say to them: get close to your kids. Don't smother them, because they're going to make mistakes, and that's okay as a teenager. They're going to
mm,
go out and they're going to do things. They're going to experiment. That's okay as a kid growing up as well, in my opinion. In my opinion. But knowing who they're associating with, watching out for mood change, real mood changes, not
yeah,
just teenager mood changes.
yeah,
Where are they going? All these sorts of things. That comes from a position of love. And I think it's really important that as parents, any parents that are listening to this, close that gap. If you feel a million miles away from your child, yeah, try and make it 500,000 miles away from your child. Just try and bridge that gap. Try and understand them. Try and, just get a little bit closer. That's not to say I mean, my children have never wanted for anything. They've always had love, structure, and stability in life, but don't have regrets. Talk about, what are they doing? Do you know the biggest trap I hear parents fall into when I do parent talks? I don't need to worry about my child. Oh, why is that? Because they're up in their bedroom on their computer. Oh, well, those are the ones you do need to worry about.
yeah,
It's a dangerous place, the internet. That doesn't mean they can't use it safely. But do you know what they're doing? What search engines are they on? Who are they talking to? What are they watching? All that, the content, all that sort of stuff. I mean, I know Ollie Stevens' family. You may remember Ollie Stevens. He was a 13-year-old that was
yeah,
murdered
yeah,
in Reading. He was lured to his death. I know Amanda and Stuart, his parents, very well. And, he was a kid that just sat upstairs on his computer. And again, I'm not trying to scare anybody that's listening. All I'm saying is, if you really feel you don't know your kids at all, get closer. Because there's another example, actually, I'm going to use a guy called Joe Dix. He was groomed into county lines gangs, and from the age of 13. and his mum and dad didn't really know what was happening, what was going on, and it got worse and worse and worse and worse. And he lost his life to knife crime. He became part of a gang. He'd stepped away from it all, and a year later, at the age of 18, he was stabbed to death. And that, that's because his mum. No, I'm not going to say that's his mum. It's not his mum and dad's fault at all. He was groomed, but they didn't. They thought he was okay. He really wasn't okay. Maybe they weren't close enough to
Yes.
where they needed to be.
Yeah. And what would you like in terms of the outcome, for Charlie's Promise? When you go into the schools and colleges or prisons, wherever you're going to, what message do you
Well,
want people to take away?
Well, more importantly than the message for the moment is that it's going to save lives. I'm convinced Charlie has saved lives and
Right.
our story, and I'm just the messenger. I'm convinced that
Right.
that's already happened, and will continue to do that. I've got ambitious plans. I want to open up a hub where we're going to have mentoring and one-to-one, and give kids don't actually want to be on the internet. They want somewhere to go, someone to listen to, and something to do. They want to feel part of a movement. So I think we need to invest in more young people and outreach work. So I'm working really hard to achieve that. But look, the message with Charlie's Promise, I think there's three things I aim to do when I deliver my talks. All right. So everybody's different. One is I bring Charlie to life. Two is that one moment in time, the consequence and devastation, the ripple effects, the snowball effect of just that one moment, such a senseless act of pure violence,
Mm.
devastates and destroys the world of so many different people. So that moment in time. And the third thing is, it's okay to report. There's a difference between snitching and reporting. Snitching is about trying to get someone into trouble. It's trying to point score against someone you've fallen out with. You know, reporting is about, you may need an adult's help. It's about keeping someone safe, and it's knowing that you're doing the right thing. I often say in my talks, just imagine if this is to my young audience, if you know someone that carries a knife and you do nothing, and in 6 weeks' time
Yeah.
they're dead or they've killed someone, how do you feel? Well, I
Yeah.
tell you what, you just need to ask the young people that came to our murder trial that had to stand in a witness box and admit that they'd heard there was a knife and did nothing. As I say, they are not to blame for Charlie's murder, but they carry their own life sentence.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. And in terms of where do you find your kind of moments of hope, of magic that I mean, whether you believe that everything happens for a reason or not, I mean, there is great purpose in what you're doing, to take,
I
Charlie's
it's
message.
Yeah. I don't think you've asked me that question, and I'm sitting here and I'm
Mm.
thinking, and I don't think I've ever, and this is something I haven't done, and I need to be more disciplined. I don't think I've actually given myself time since Charlie died
Wow.
to stop and think. I have just been 100 miles an hour, telling everyone about him, getting the message out there, and trying to prevent other families from living a life like ours. And I haven't really given much time um, for myself, or thought, everything, because I'm scared. Okay, I'm scared. I'm actually scared. I'm scared to stop. I'm scared to go on the other side of the tightrope that I spoke about earlier. I'm so scared because I think if I fall over onto that side, I don't think I'd ever come back. And I know that while I'm busy and while I'm doing things and while I'm productive and adding value and talking about my incredibly talented, beautiful son, you know, I haven't got time to to even venture any, to go anywhere near that. But it's hard. I need to find, there is a balance somewhere, I guess it is what I'm saying. I
Right.
haven't found it yet. I've been on autopilot, and I've been on autopilot at warp speed. It's I've just been flying around like an absolute lunatic, winning awards and all this sort of stuff. And it's not about that, please understand that. But
Of
when I first started, it was about making Charlie proud, whereas now that's changed a little bit. It's about saving lives now. I think the pain right at the beginning was so agonizing. I'll be honest, it wasn't about saving other lives. I was like, I can't even think about that. I've just had my child murdered. It was about making him proud. And, I won Pride of Britain for London and all these things. I'm like, he's going to be proud. He's going to be proud. Whereas now I don't give a monkeys about awards. I don't care about anything like that. All I care about is sharing our story,
Yeah,
keeping his memory alive, and helping other families. And I mean that sincerely.
it's beautiful. And if you could describe yourself using one word, which I know might sound a little bit bizarre, but there's a reason for it, what would it be?
What, in my new world or my old world?
Oh gosh, yeah. Which side of the tightrope are you on? In the middle of the tightrope.
Okay, so because we talk about our old world and our new world, it's definitely changed. You know, as a GP said to me, you've had a serious brain injury just because you can't see it. I think um, one word. Wow.
Mm,
Um, I think dedicated. Look, I'm dedicated. I'm
beautiful.
dedicated. I'm really dedicated. I'm passionate. I mean, it's hard one word, isn't it? Because I think there's
Yeah.
quite a few I could use. You know, if I was talking about my demeanor, my life, I would say I was broken. But if I'm talking about, you know, staying on the right side of that tightrope, then I have to be dedicated,
Mm,
passionate. I have to be, you know, yeah. It's that goodness me, Sid. You've got me there. That's really tough to answer
it is tough.
because you know the power. One word is it says a lot about somebody, and I don't necessarily know that I have the answer for that. I think people say lovely things to me, and they're like you. They call me strong. They say you're so strong. I'm definitely not strong. Um, I have this out of body, as I say, it's almost like an out of body experience where you're living, you're just functioning and running around, and you're not giving yourself time to think about anything. So your life is so um, almost robotic. It becomes more. And look, people's lives become monotonous, don't they? You get up, you go to work 9 to 5, whatever it is you do. You come home and you get to the weekend. You play football on a Saturday. You watch it on a Sunday
Yeah.
if you're into football like me or like I used to be.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas now, I yeah, I just don't really think that far ahead. People say to me, "Are you around to do this next week?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know how I'm going to feel then. So look, I'll put it in my diary, but I
Yes.
can't guarantee it. You know."
Yeah, no, I hear that. And if you could use one word to describe Charlie, what would it be? And I know you
Oh,
said cheeks, and I love that word.
do you know what? Charlie was beautiful.
Um,
He was beautiful.
oh,
It really was a privilege
oh,
and an honor to be his dad. It really was, and I mean that. To have Charlie in my life for 17 years is not long enough, but it is 17 years that, do you know, it feels like a dream. My old world, it feels like a dream.
wow.
What I would do to go back there, it really does. It feels like a dream. It doesn't feel real, and that's really hard because I think the things I miss. Someone asked me the other day, "What do you miss about Charlie?" And the easy answer is everything because I do. But the one thing I really miss is his voice.
Oh,
I just miss hearing him. I
mm.
miss hearing him. Just you know, I just miss hearing. Oh, sorry, I'm getting
Oh,
upset
no,
now.
no, no, don't be sorry. Oh,
I just miss him so much. He was an incredible young man, and this
and, it,
world's a lot worse off without my little boy. I tell you now.
and it's so sad, isn't it, that such a beautiful young man is taken,
Yeah.
and that's it. It's so finite, isn't it?
Do you
It's
know, it's such a senseless crime. Like,
yeah, yeah.
he's
It's
just
not.
like, oh, he's asked you to leave the girl alone, so you kill him.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, what?
yeah,
And he's shown no remorse. He's shown no remorse. Didn't even flinch during the murder trial. You know, to not even to plead guilty and then change his mind. Say,
yeah,
oh, I'll have a go at manslaughter. To not even take ownership of his crime
yeah,
is despicable to me.
yeah.
It's despicable.
Oh, Martin, love you. Bless you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Honestly,
Oh, you're welcome.
thank you for
You're
sharing
welcome.
that story,
You're welcome.
and I hope that people who listen to this will take heed. And as you say, I the one thing, well, there's loads that I loved about what you were saying. I mean, obviously incredibly sad, but close that gap between you and your kids. If
Yeah.
there is a chasm, fill it. Find a way.
Get
Find that bridge.
get to know them. Get to know them. Okay. It's not, it comes from a position of love.
Yeah,
It's not smothering them. You
yeah,
can give them you know, freedom. You can give them but actually, do we not as parents have a responsibility to know who our kids are associating with and what they're doing? I think we do.
I
And
think
and interestingly, and I know we're coming to the end now, Sid, but
mm,
interestingly, this is something that bugs me with, and I'm not going to go into the whole bit about the judicial system, but in the United States, and I had this post this on TikTok the other day, and one of my questions is: in the United States, parents whose children commit the most heinous of crimes, such as murder, they are punished for it as well.
we should.
Why, how
Mm,
much responsibility do you how accountable are you for your child's behavior? And I'm not going to answer that, because I know people who have lost
yeah,
children that, you know but have a think about it. You do not want to be, as much as being the parent that gets, and nothing is worse than having your child murdered. Just think about, do you want to be the parent who's in a court in the minority because
yeah,
your child is there facing 20 years in prison for taking someone's life?
yeah,
Pwah, I don't think so.
yeah. Wow. Martin, oh, thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
for your honesty and oh man, thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome, Sid. You're welcome.